Now, in looking at plants that are going to give you the highest calories per acre, the plants that would really truly help sustain you through the difficult times that are coming in the future, what would you grow? Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. This particular crop was originally from the Andean highlands, so in regions where it was too high to grow grain crops. Because of its high elevation that it originally came from, this particular crop grows fantastically in areas of the world that are cool and have relatively short seasons. Now, if you have a longer season, that's fantastic. You can grow it in many areas of the world. Now, if you live in a tropical area of the world, you might want to grow things like, to get the majority of your calories, things like sweet potatoes or cassava, these kind of things. You can get tons of calories per acre with that method. But if you're in the colder regions of the world, then you can't really get a good yield out of something like sweet potato. This particular crop is, in the temperate regions, is the crop that grows the most calories per acre or per square foot of any other crop probably. And also, it's probably the easiest plant to grow when it comes to gardening or agriculture. And what is this crop? What is this plant? It is the simple, common potato. What happened was, we're told anyway, that a French aristocrat wanted to get the poor people, because they realized there was a lot of famines from maybe the either 1300s or 1500s forward. There were a lot of famines until, strangely enough, the potato began to make its way into Europe. And what happened was, this specifically in this French region, that this French aristocrat wanted the poor people to begin to try to eat potatoes, grow them, and so that they'd have plenty of nutrition. He grew some in his palace garden there, and he set a guard by them. And so people see this guard standing day after day by this plant. And man, what kind of plant would this be? This must be a super important plant. And then on purpose, he had the guard go home at night. And within a short period, guess what happened? Well, potatoes began to disappear and they began to spring up all over the French countryside. And so then obviously it spread all over the place, but this became, we're told also, at least one historian tells us, that one of the things that supported the Roman Empire was wheat. That, from Egypt you had this breadbasket of the world sending its wheat products to support the Roman Empire and the Roman armies and so forth, you can imagine. But one of the things that at least one historian has suggested, that the power, the center of power, the shift from the Mediterranean basin up into northern Europe was changed in part potentially due to the potato. Because the potato can give so many calories, so much more than something like wheat or grains, and most grains in general anyway, that now people could have plenty of calories and you weren't having as many of these famine troubles until you came down to the potato famine there in Ireland. So you don't just want to stick with one thing, you want to have a diversity, as I said. Certain regions, if you get far enough north, it can be very difficult or impossible to have a good yielding or a yield at all of certain wheat crops, or grain crops, I should say. And so the strange thing about it is, the same weather that would maybe destroy your wheat, maybe terrible storms and these kind of things, or droughts or different things that might destroy certain grain crops anyway, the potato thrives in it. A potato is a fantastic storing crop also. That's the thing. I mean, it's very simple to store. You literally put it in cold storage. There are certain ways where you can bury it deep enough that it doesn't freeze if you don't have a root cellar. And so these are different methods that you can save it. And certain varieties will actually take you from the harvest season to the next harvest. So an entire year you can just store them in a cold cellar and a root cellar. And there are other varieties that won't. They'll begin to sprout, and so they begin to go bad, so that you wouldn't want to eat them. You can use them as a seed potato, but you wouldn't want to eat them. And even those ones, what you can do is, when you begin to discover when they're getting closer to that time period, or plenty early, you can actually dry some of those and still use them. You can grind them up like a grain, and either way you can end up using them. So like I said, but it's always nice to have some of the longer storage ones like the Yukon Gold or various others. Now there have been times in history where people had to subsist nearly exclusively on this plant, on the potato. You've probably heard of the Irish potato famine, right? Where, I don't know, maybe around 1 million people died because there was a blight to the potatoes, and they were eating at that time. We're told that at that time, men were eating somewhere between like 11 to 13 pounds of potatoes a day, not a week, a day. They were literally subsisting almost solely off the potatoes. And so when their potato crop failed, they literally were starving. And so I'm not suggesting that you just eat potatoes. You don't want to put all your potatoes in one basket, as it were. So you want to have a diversity of food, but two of the most important crops that we're going to look at, we're just looking at one now, is the simple common potato. In the northern regions, the potato, it can grow all the way to zone 2. So you can grow this in Russia, you can grow this in the northern regions of North America, Canada, Alaska. I mean, this is a very, very hardy food that can be often started 2-3 weeks before your last frost. You can put your seed potato in the ground, and and then you can even you harvest it way later in the season, depending on the variety. There's shorter season and longer season varieties, so you'll want to work that out with whatever region that you're in. But we're going to plant some of these things just now, and so come along and we'll show you how to do this.